If you just close your eyes and block your ears to the accumulated knowledge of the last 2,000 years, then morally, guess what? You're off the hook. And thank Christ you only have to read one book.
Good evening, everybody. Have you ever seen those creationist lectures where some idiot from some creatard organisation gets up in front of an audience, usually in a church setting, and tells them all about dinosaurs and the flood and how evolution never happened? I have. And that got me thinking, and when I thought about it, it occurred to me that there is a bit of a contradiction there. Let me explain. This is a lion, and like all lions, it eats meat. In fact, all cats eat meat, even the one you might have at home. Cats really don't like a vegetarian diet. They tend to get really sick if you feed them nothing but vegetables and muesli. Now, according to creatards of the likes of Ken Ham and his little band of gibbering idiots at the Creation Museum, an institution that has its arguments and assertions refuted and debunked by the very ground on which it stands, all modern-day cats, such as lions and tigers, are descended from the two cat kinds of animal that Noah took for an extended cruise on his little boat sometime in the Bronze Age. Every single one of them. According to creationists, cats spontaneously evolved into every species of cat alive today, using some kind of variation within the kinds, and it all happened over the last 4,000 years. In fact, it must have happened a lot faster, because the ancient Egyptians knew all about lions back in 1300 BC, about 700 years after they'd finished mopping up from the flood. And what's more, they knew that a lion wasn't a domesticated cat, because they made statues of both. And they both look very different from each other, but surprisingly, each is similar enough to the modern-day species to be recognizable. I guess that the skewed notion that cats gave birth to dogs is a bit of a stretch for most creationists, but the idea that Tiddles the house cat giving birth to a lion or a tiger, well, that's okay. Oh, and guess what? They ate meat back then too. Now, where am I going with this? Well, creatards such as this idiot, Ian Juby, a self-styled professor of dressing for the outdoors and lying to kids in lectures, says that all creatures in the Garden of Eden ate plants. That includes creatures like this. Yes, it was no fun being a plant back before the fall. Just look at those huge, powerful hind legs, designed by his creator for charging after and chasing down broccoli, and those ferocious teeth designed with serrated edges specifically for shredding lettuce, and those dainty little forearms for tossing salads. This 6-ton mountain of muscle and sinew, a killing machine with a head full of razor-sharp teeth that had binocular vision, a characteristic found mainly in predators, that is estimated to be able to run at speeds of up to 45 miles per hour, never ate meat until Adam ate an apple. Just like this badass, a saber-toothed cat from the genus Semilodon that had front teeth up to 12 inches long that protruded nearly 7 inches out of its jaw. You can see why Noah was relieved that God only specified kinds of animals, and so settled on including Mr. Tinkles the house cat in his nautical zoo, rather than Mr. Give me that ball of wool or I will rip that fucking arm off here. Let's not forget about creatures such as sharks and the many ferocious-looking, long-extinct sea creatures that God made late in the day after he realized that he had overestimated just how many razor-sharp teeth that he would need, so decided to add a few extra to the creatures still remaining to use up the spares, hoping that nobody would notice. All the better for eating seaweed. Yes. According to biblical biology experts such as Mr. Ham, ironically himself named after a piece of meat, these creatures were all created fully formed and intact with their big bloody teeth by our Lord and Creator and placed in the garden with Adam and Eve, and according to outdoor experts like Ian Juby, they feasted on vegetables. Smilodon, a smile only a mother would love and everyone else would run away from. These off-diet creatures were all then corrupted with the fall of man and changed into predators, presuming that the arse of an antelope was far more of a meal than a turnip. Of course, this is all rather handy for these creatures, don't you think? Modern predators with specific adaptations for killing certain prey and metabolisms geared to eating meat rather than vegetation, all designed by a benevolent creator who knew that some way down the line they were going to need them to rip other animals to shreds. And there is the contradiction. Ken Ham's loving and benevolent God knew full well that Eve couldn't be trusted near an apple tree, and that he would be serving eviction papers on Adam by the end of the chapter. It was all just a matter of time. He was well aware that death would come into the world, and that big cats such as lions would be tearing the arses off gazelles before too long, and they would need the tools for the job. Adam was literally set up for the fall. Creationists and fundamentalist Christians seem to forget that their God knows everything. Everything that ever happened, everything that is happening, and everything that ever will happen, from the start of time itself until the day Jesus learns to play the trumpet, and even after that. Yet, somehow he has trouble finding the only two humans on the planet. He makes creatures that need to eat meat to survive, but only lets them eat plants while they are in the petting zoo of Eden. He sets up tests that he has designed his creation to fail, and he will blame and punish his creation for that failure throughout all of existence and beyond. If you are a fundamentalist Christian, and you are going to insist that God created all animals today fully formed with all of their current characteristics way back in the Garden of Eden, including predators like lions and tigers, sharks and eagles, wolves and coyotes, then you cannot say that putting the apple tree in the Garden of Eden was God testing his creation. He clearly knew the outcome long before he did it, but he did it anyway, which in my book makes him responsible for the outcome. And if he is responsible for the fall, then why the hell would a bloke getting nailed to 2 lengths of wood 4,000 years later in any way pay the price on my behalf for something that wasn't the fault of any human in history? That being history made up by the most brilliantly gifted goat-toaders of their time while sat scratching their arses around a campfire at night, or otherwise. There is a perfectly rational and non-contradictory explanation for the origins of modern species today, and that is evolution by way of natural selection. With biological evolution, there is no need to bend and twist the evidence, discounting everything that does not agree and cherry-picking absurdities to fit the story. The story is told by the evidence. Biological evolution is a simple explanation. In fact, its brilliance is in its simplicity, even though the results of the process may be complex and wondrous. The truth is that there is no Garden of Eden, no flood, no ark. And if a man died a gruesome death nailed to 2 pieces of wood on the top of a hill 2,000 years ago, it wasn't to satisfy the bloodlust of some invisible magician in the sky. It says it all when you show a picture of a Tyrannosaurus Rex to a group of children and ask them if they think that it ate meat, and they say yes, but you think the answer is no. Some things are so patently obvious that even young children can see them, but it needs a special kind of idiot, one so brainwashed and deluded in their understanding of the real world and convinced of the accuracy of a Bronze Age notion devised by people who never travelled further than 30 miles from the place they were born, to not see the obvious. Children will believe you when you tell them stories from the Bible, because children will believe anything. They believe that fairy stories are real, regardless of them being written by the Brothers Grimm or by Moses. Our first ancestors that encountered the ancestors of today's lions and tigers knew full well that they didn't eat vegetables, because just like children today, when they saw those teeth, they knew full well what they were for, and it wasn't to shred lettuce.
You guys think T-Rex ate meat? You know? Okay. Well, you know, my Bible says that in the beginning, everything ate plants, and that was it. There was no meat eater.